Can you squeeze through a 1-pixel gap? Or what happens if you blow up this crazy TNT construction? Here are 75 of the most insane Minecraft experiments. What happens if you throw an ender pearl and immediately teleport to another dimension? The results will depend on which version you are playing. In the new version 1.21, unlike the older versions, the player can be teleported from one dimension to another by the ender pearl if it is thrown into a loaded chunk. Also, in the new version, if you throw an ender pearl into any of the portals, it will move to another dimension and teleport you there. Lava can't be placed underwater, you think. But actually, that's not true. You can place lava underwater if you put it in a cauldron. Though you'd still take damage if you climb into this cauldron. What happens if you enchant an item to level 255 knockback? Regular knockback levels already pack a punch. But with a special command, you can enchant an item to knockback 255. This makes it insanely powerful. A stick with knockback 255 can send mobs flying into the stratosphere, and webs, which usually reduce knockback, can't stop it. You can push a mob up to 30 blocks away. Minecraft never stops surprising with its logic. And this is a clear example. Farmland seems fragile. A simple jump can break it. But if you drop an anvil, a dragon egg, or another gravity block on it, the block will break and the farmland and crops will stay intact. Apparently, potatoes are stronger than anvils. The /game rule command allows you to disable the day and night cycle. So what happens if you use it at night and then go to bed? Surprisingly, the player will wake up at night. Bad news for villagers. They get to sleep forever. Which tool is faster, gold or netherite? Gold tools are actually a bit faster than netherite tools. If you compare gold tools and wooden tools with efficiency 5 enchantments, wooden tools surprisingly win. They are noticeably faster than you'd think, but in the end, I'd still prefer netherite tools over both. If you place a block of snow close to a cactus, the cactus will break. But if you try to place snow layers instead of snow blocks, it won't break. This way, you can stack some layers to make it look like the cactus and snow blocks are next to each other. If lightning strikes a villager, it turns into a witch. But what if lightning strikes a baby villager? Turning into a baby witch would be more logical. However, it actually turns into an adult witch. The mace is a powerful new weapon that deals massive damage. The damage increases the higher you fall from. But what if you have a slow falling effect while using the mace? The slow falling effect will reduce the damage dealt since the final damage depends on the player's falling speed. Then what if you combine a slow falling effect with an elytra? Doing this makes it almost impossible to take fall damage, even if you hit the ground at a high speed. The slow falling effect completely neutralizes the damage, but be a bit careful. You can still take damage, though you'd have to try hard to do so. Overall, flying with this effect is super convenient and worth a try. Lightning in Minecraft sets the ground on fire, but can it light up functional blocks or another portal? Lighting up another portal is not really a problem for lightning, but it can't light up campfires, candles, or TNT. The thing that it can do is a fire arrow, which is formed when a regular arrow passes through fire or lava, or is released from a bow enchanted with flint. If you try to activate a portal with a fire arrow, it won't work, which is a bit disappointing. If a villager ends up in the nether, they'll try to get back home. When they can't, what else is left to do but go to sleep? Villagers can sleep in other dimensions, so if there's a bed nearby in the nether or the end, they'll happily lie down for a rest. What happens if you activate an end portal with other blocks inside it? The blocks inside, even bedrock, will be replaced by portal blocks. But what if you try activate the portal if there are villagers sleeping inside? Villagers, as well as other mobs, will teleport and end up in the same place where the player usually spawns. If you give a mace to a fox, will its damage increase when it jumps on prey? It will, since the fox jumps a few blocks before its attack. Holding the mace increases the damage due to the fall. It's cool that the new weapon's functionality isn't limited to just players. You can't hit an Enderman with an arrow because it instantly dodges projectiles by teleporting. But what if there's nowhere to teleporting? In a super flat world with a void preset, leaving only one block with an Enderman on it, place a bunch of arrows on the block above it. As a result, the Enderman will still dodge every arrow, which looks really cool. You can light portals of various sizes in Minecraft. But what happens if you light 2 crossed nether portals? It would be more interesting if both portals activated, but unfortunately the game only allows one to light up. Perpetual motion machines are scientifically impossible. But that's not the case in Minecraft. There are two ways to create one. For the first, place a pressure plate next to a piston and stand exactly between them. The piston will push you up, causing you to stop pressing the plate. The piston then lowers, and the cycle repeats infinitely. The second is more complicated. You need to place the rails in a specific way and put the minecart on them. This way, the minecart will continue to go around the loop. If you put an entity inside, it will become even faster. What if you build a nether portal underwater? Since you can't create fire underwater, you won't be able to light the portal using normal methods. However, in creative mode, you can use the setBlock command to manually place portal blocks where they should be, allowing you to build a portal underwater. What if you build an end portal underwater? Unlike the nether portal, the end portal can be naturally activated underwater with no problem. Now, it's clear that these two portals don't have much in common. If you've ever seen a baby zombie villager riding a chicken, consider yourself lucky. It's a rare sight. If you find one, you can transform it into a regular villager and it'll still be riding the chicken. Eventually, it'll grow up while still on the chicken, which looks pretty hilarious. Wolves hate skeletons, and if a skeleton comes into a wolf's line of sight, the wolf will attack it. This includes regular skeletons and wither skeletons. But what about skeleton horses? If a wolf sees a skeleton horse, it just ignores it, apparently not considering it a threat. In Minecraft, you can shoot through a 1-pixel gap. If you break the block near a dirt path, a small gap forms between it and the block above. You might think an arrow can't fit through, but it actually can. Now you can stealthily fire at players and mobs through such a fence. If you poison a silverfish, the infested blocks around it will break rapidly, releasing more silverfish. You can build a large area with lots of infested blocks and place a poisoned silverfish there, causing it to break down quickly. It's oddly satisfying to watch. Water and nether don't mix, right? But what if I told you that you can still place water there? Just put it in a cauldron and it won't evaporate. Cauldrons seem to break Minecraft's logic a bit. Piercing is a crossbow enchantment that lets arrows pierce through entities. The higher the enchantment, the more mobs it can pierce. But what happens if you enchant a crossbow to level 255? Surprisingly, it doesn't work like level 255 knockback. The arrow will only damage a single mob. If you enchant piercing above level 127, the arrow won't pass through mobs at all. At level 127, the arrow can pierce about 25 mobs. Everyone knows that the Dinnerbone name tag turns creatures upside down. But here's a fun fact. If you name a slime Dinnerbone, when you kill it, the smaller slimes will also be upside down. They keep the name and the orientation. Will a cub born from two mobs named Dinnerbone be upside down? Unfortunately, it will not. Even if both parents are upside down, their baby will always be the right side up. You can create a beautiful range of fire arrows with a simple contraption. Enter the command that gives arrows flame particles in a repeating command block. Shoot arrows into TNT and then activate the TNT to see an incredibly beautiful scene. If you place a huge area of skulk sensors with trapdoors on top of them, it is possible to create beautiful waves by dropping objects from above. The skulk sensors will react to the sound of the dropped objects, causing the trapdoors to open and close in patterns. You can create a cool item vortex with water flow. Dig a 2x2 block square and extend a 7-block ditch in 4 directions. Pour water into each ditch, and the water will flow to the middle, forming a whirlpool that spins dropped items in a circle. Can the Wither be summoned underwater? The answer is not so obvious. But no, because you cannot place Wither skeleton skulls underwater. Furthermore, any mob head on contact with water will immediately break and fall out. You can create a world full of water in Minecraft by setting a super flat world with a water preset. If you try to fill some areas with air, the whole will immediately regenerate, which looks really cool. This is the most inefficient way to get to the top of the world. Starting from Y level -63 and climbing to Y level 319, it takes 18 blocks to go up just 1 block. The whole climb takes about 27 minutes, while using a normal ladder to reach the same height would take less than 3 minutes. That's how inefficient this method is. You can also build the slowest horizontal path in Minecraft using soul sand, honey blocks, and cobwebs. Drink a slowness potion, draw your bow, and crouch while moving forward. Your speed will be about 0.1 blocks per second. Can you sleep underwater? Actually, you can. This can be especially useful if you're being chased by a large crowd of hostile mobs and you need to skip the night. As long as there are no drowns around, you can safely sleep in a bed. What happens if you use a splash potion of invisibility on bosses? It would be normal for bosses to become invisible, because any other mob becomes invisible when interacting with splash potions of invisibility. However, bosses have decided to distinguish themselves. You can't make them invisible in this way. An arrow with an instant heal effect can heal if you shoot it at yourself. What if you try to heal it with just 1 HP? The player will die, because the arrow deals damage first and then heals. Can 1 pixel of water save you from falling damage? If you place chests so that water squeezes through the small gap between them, even a single pixel of water can save you from a fall if you get close enough to it. The same trick works with cobwebs and even honey lots. If a zombie is underwater for a while, it turns into a drought. But what about a giant zombie? It needs a large body of water to sink into, but it won't turn into a giant drown. Unlike regular zombies, giant zombies don't burn in the sun. It seems that the only thing they share is a similar texture. Will 2 slabs join if you activate this redstone mechanism? In Minecraft, you can actually join 2 different slabs, but this mechanism doesn't allow. In this situation, only 1 piston extends. The mace negates fall damage if you hit a mob with it, but what if you continue to fall after hitting a mob? If there's enough distance between the mob and the ground, the player will still take damage. The mace only negates damage at the moment of the hit. If you create a super flat world made entirely of TNT, you can make the most insane explosion. You probably need a NASA PC to render it. So let's look at a slightly smaller explosion. If you blow up a massive TNT structure like this, you'll get an incredible explosion that wipes out everything over a huge area. It is so satisfying to watch. 2 buckets of water in Minecraft can create an infinite water source. But how much water is actually stored in a single block of water? Actually, it can store an unbelievable amount. Water in Minecraft works so that when it flows to the block below, the distance to which it spreads increases. So if you build such a structure in the form of a giant ladder, the water can spread over an unrealistically huge distance. And if you then break the whole structure, your world can flood. You can summon a wither by placing soul sand and wither skeleton skulls in various ways. But what happens if you try to place a wither skull between 2 joined structures? Only 1 wither will spawn. The same thing happens if you try to summon 2 golems at the same time. We know that even 1 pixel of water can neutralize fall damage, but if you fall into a water-filled cauldron, it surprisingly doesn't neutralize the fall damage. The cauldron continues to defy logic. Can waterlogged dripstone save you from fall damage? Yes, it can. Even if you land directly on the spike, as long as it's waterlogged, you won't take any damage. The Ender Dragon can destroy almost any block it passes through, except those naturally generated on the center and the island, as well as bedrock, water, and lava. What happens if you place nether portals all over the end using commands? Surprisingly, the dragon doesn't teleport. It just destroys all those portal blocks. But it would be awesome if the dragon could teleport to another dimension. Can you mine diamond ore with a wooden pickaxe enchanted with silk touch? It would be nice if you could, but you can't. The wooden pickaxe is pretty useless for that. The flower pots are great for decoration and can hold different kinds of flowers. Can you place a wither rose in a flower pot? Since the wither rose is a flower, it can be placed in a pot just like the others. It will even stop dealing damage when you approach it. Can you sleep in a bed that's halfway outside of the world border? The player can still sleep in such a bed. But what if you try to grow a tree here? The tree will grow just fine as if nothing happened. If a player falls from a height while on horseback, both the horse and the player take the fall damage. It is the same for a player riding a pig. However, you can avoid the damage by sacrificing the animal and getting off at the last moment. The player will take no damage, but the pig, well, let's just say won't be so lucky. What if you place a hopper minecart under a bedrock block? Normally, a hopper minecart can absorb items from the block above. Despite bedrock being indestructible, the game allows the hopper minecart to suck up items through it. What happens if you use a silk touch enchanted item on a bee nest with bees inside? You need a pickaxe enchanted with silk touch to get the bee eyes. But if there are bees inside, you will be able to carry them as well. The main thing is not to confuse the pickaxe, because if you break it without this enchantment, you're in trouble. Frostwalker is a unique enchantment that lets you walk on water by turning it into ice. Does it work if you're on horseback? No, it doesn't. It would be odd if it did, since it's the horse moving on the water, not you. Even if you enchant horse armor with Frostwalker, the water won't turn into ice. We know an Enderman can stand in water if it's in a cauldron, but will it take damage in waterlogged leaves? Surprisingly, yes. Despite being okay with cauldron water, an Enderman will take damage from waterlogged leaves and teleport to safety. What if you breed a mushroom with a brown mushroom? While it would be cooler if a new kind of cow was born, unfortunately you'll only get a regular mushroom or a brown one. It is also the same if you try to breed wolves of different types. Generally, the breed of the cub will depend on which parent you fed first. A skulk catalyst turns nearby blocks into skulk when a mob is killed next to it. If you use a repeating command block to endlessly spawn and kill mobs, the skulk catalyst will keep spreading skulk blocks over a huge area. Theoretically, skulk could cover your entire world. You can create a cool item elevator using ice, soul sand, and water. By placing the blocks this way, items will slide on the ice and bounce on the water and soul sand, making it a visually pleasing and effective way to lift items up. Here is another fun fact about the mace. If you enchant the mace with sharpness in creative mode, it will do a bit more damage than normal. Who will a golem choose as its first target if it's spawned equidistant from several hostile mobs? If you set up a scenario with zombies equally spaced around the golem, you'll see that the golem picks its target randomly, changing its choice each time. Which is faster, transporting blocks with ally or water flow? If you're transporting items over long distances, water flow is better. However, if you compare these methods over a distance of about 16 blocks, ally outperforms water flow, becoming more useful for shorter distances. What happens if you throw a shocker box filled with netherite into lava? Netherite does not burn in fire or lava, but this isn't the case for a shulker box. If you throw a shulker box with netherite items into lava, the shulker box will burn, and the netherite inside will drop. What happens if you give a mob a totem of undying and then try to kill it? We all know that mobs, as well as the player, can hold their items in their hand. The functionality of items is not lost if they are in the hands of a mob, so the totem will work and the mob will not die. Redstone can be incredibly satisfying. This concrete powder wave machine throws blocks upwards in beautiful patterns. Using multicolored concrete powder makes it even more satisfying to watch. If you give mobs like skeletons or zombies frostwalker boots, they will freeze the water around them. Undead mobs with these boots won't be able to put themselves out during the day by going into the water. They are in trouble if there is no tree or other shelter from the sunlight. Water is known to neutralize TNT explosions, but it's not the only thing that can. Dropping an anvil on activated TNT will neutralize the explosion just like water. So if you don't have water handy but have an anvil, you can still stop an incoming explosion. You can create real quicksand in Minecraft by placing a cobweb over soul sand and water, then dropping sand on top. The sand will slowly sink, and if you fall in, it will be almost impossible to get out. Snow golems normally prefer cold biomes. So what happens when you spawn one in the nether? Unfortunately, the heat is too much for them. As soon as you place the pumpkin on top of the snow blocks, the snow golem will start taking damage and will quickly melt away. If you name a sheep Jed, its wool will change colors constantly. But what happens if you shear the sheep? Will you get wool that changes color? Unfortunately, no. You'll get the color of wool the sheep had before being renamed. What happens if you throw an ender pearl and then go to bed? Will you teleport? Actually, the ender pearl just disappears if you're lying in bed, so nothing will bother you while sleeping. Falling on a dripstone obviously does a lot of damage, but if you hit your head on a stalactite, you don't take any damage. It's the same as when you hit it bouncing on slime blocks. If you create a super flat world out of copper, it will gradually oxidize and everywhere. It looks cool, like the world is being taken over by some kind of virus.